Question 1. Stakeholder feedback indicates a potential new corporate partnership that offers significant financial sponsorship for several academic departments, but the sponsor's primary business activities have recently faced public scrutiny regarding ethical practices. What is the most appropriate course of action for Ahram Canadian University? Option A. Decline the sponsorship outright due to the public scrutiny, without further investigation, to avoid any potential reputational risk. Option B. Accept the sponsorship immediately to address departmental budget shortfalls, with a plan to address any ethical concerns if they arise later. Option C. Negotiate a revised sponsorship agreement that explicitly excludes any involvement of the sponsor in academic content or curriculum development, while still accepting the funding. Option D. Conduct a comprehensive due diligence investigation into the sponsor's ethical standing and the proposed partnership's alignment with university policies and Egyptian Ministry of Higher Education regulations before making any commitment. The correct answer is D. Conduct a comprehensive due diligence investigation into the sponsor's ethical standing and the proposed partnership's alignment with university policies and Egyptian Ministry of Higher Education regulations before making any commitment. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between the university's immediate financial needs and the long-term implications of potentially compromising academic integrity. The pressure to secure funding can lead to decisions that, while seemingly beneficial in the short term, could erode the university's reputation and the value of its degrees. Careful judgment is required to balance financial sustainability with ethical obligations and adherence to regulatory frameworks governing educational institutions. The correct approach involves a thorough review of the proposed partnership against the Ahram Canadian University's established policies and relevant Egyptian Ministry of Higher Education regulations concerning external collaborations and funding. This approach prioritizes due diligence, transparency, and alignment with the university's mission and academic standards. It ensures that any partnership enhances, rather than detracts from, the educational experience and the university's standing. Specifically, it requires verifying that the partner's operations and proposed contributions do not create conflicts of interest, compromise curriculum integrity, or violate any accreditation standards or governmental directives. An incorrect approach would be to immediately accept the funding offer without adequate scrutiny. This fails to uphold the university's responsibility to its students and faculty by potentially exposing them to an entity that may not align with academic values or could lead to reputational damage. It also risks violating regulatory requirements that mandate oversight of partnerships and funding sources to ensure they serve the best interests of the educational institution and its stakeholders. Another incorrect approach would be to prioritize the financial benefit above all else, overlooking any potential ethical concerns or regulatory noncompliance raised during the initial review. This demonstrates a failure to act in good faith and could lead to significant repercussions, including sanctions from regulatory bodies, loss of accreditation, and severe damage to the university's reputation. It prioritizes short-term gain over long-term institutional health and ethical conduct. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured risk assessment framework. This includes identifying potential risks, financial, reputational, academic, regulatory, evaluating their likelihood and impact, and developing mitigation strategies. It also necessitates consulting relevant university policies, legal counsel, and regulatory guidelines. Transparency with stakeholders, including students, faculty, and governing bodies, is crucial throughout the decision-making process. When faced with conflicting priorities, professionals must always default to upholding ethical principles and regulatory compliance, even if it means foregoing immediate financial opportunities. Question 2. Market research demonstrates that prospective students are increasingly concerned about how their personal data is used by educational institutions. Ahram Canadian University is planning to collect applicant data for its entrance exam. Which of the following approaches best aligns with the ethical and regulatory expectations for handling student data during the admissions process and for potential future university communications? Option A. Collect only the minimum data necessary for entrance exam administration and admission decisions, and do not use this data for any other purpose without a separate, explicit consent process initiated by the student after admission. Option B. Collect all applicant data and automatically enroll them in university marketing newsletters and alumni engagement programs, with a general disclaimer about data usage in the admissions policy document. Option C. Clearly outline in the application process the specific purposes for which data will be used, including admission assessment and optional participation in future university communications, requiring explicit opt-in consent for each secondary use. Option D. Use all collected applicant data for internal university analytics and research, anonymizing it thoroughly before any analysis, and inform applicants that their data will be used in this manner. Correct answer is B. Collect all applicant data and automatically enroll them in university marketing newsletters and alumni engagement programs, with a general disclaimer about data usage in the admissions policy document. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the university's need for accurate student data with the ethical and regulatory obligations concerning data privacy and consent. The Ahram Canadian University entrance exam context implies adherence to specific Egyptian educational regulations and potentially Canadian data protection principles if there's a cross-border element, though for this exam, we focus solely on the implied Egyptian framework for university admissions. The core challenge lies in obtaining informed consent for data usage beyond the immediate admission process, ensuring that students understand how their information will be used and have the choice to opt in or opt out. The correct approach involves clearly communicating the purpose of data collection, the specific uses beyond admission, and providing a clear mechanism for students to consent or refuse. This aligns with principles of transparency and individual autonomy, which are fundamental in data protection regulations. Specifically, it respects the student's right to control their personal information and prevents the university from unilaterally repurposing data collected under the premise of admission assessment. This approach ensures compliance with any relevant Egyptian data protection laws that mandate informed consent for processing personal data for secondary purposes. An incorrect approach that involves automatically including student data in marketing databases without explicit consent violates the principle of informed consent. This is a direct contravention of data protection ethics and regulations, as it presumes consent where none has been given. Another incorrect approach, which is to only provide a vague statement about data usage in a lengthy document, fails to meet the standard of clear and understandable communication required for valid consent. Students may not fully grasp the implications, rendering their consent potentially invalid. Finally, an approach that involves anonymizing data, but still using it for marketing purposes without consent, can be problematic if the anonymization is not robust or if the original collection was not for such a broad purpose. Even anonymized data usage should ideally be transparent, especially if it stems from data collected under specific limited pretenses. Professionals should adopt a decision-making framework that prioritizes transparency, informed consent, and adherence to all applicable data privacy regulations. This involves a proactive assessment of data usage beyond the primary purpose, designing clear consent mechanisms, and regularly reviewing data handling practices against regulatory requirements and ethical best practices. Question 3. Stakeholder feedback indicates a desire to increase the enrollment of students from underrepresented backgrounds, with some suggesting that admissions criteria should be more flexible to accommodate candidates who may not meet traditional academic benchmarks, but demonstrate significant leadership potential or unique life experiences. Considering the regulatory framework and guidelines for the Ahram Canadian University entrance exam, which of the following approaches best addresses this feedback while upholding academic integrity and fairness? Option A. Establish a clearly defined and documented process for evaluating leadership potential and unique life experiences as supplementary criteria, ensuring these are assessed objectively and applied consistently to all applicants, within the bounds of existing university admission policies and Egyptian ministry regulations. Option B. Implement a system where admissions officers subjectively assess the potential of candidates based on informal interviews and personal recommendations, overriding traditional academic scores when deemed necessary. Option C. Create a separate, less rigorous admission track for candidates identified as having potential, but lacking traditional academic qualifications, without a clear framework for their assessment or integration into the university curriculum. Option D. Prioritize applicants who provide letters of recommendation from influential individuals or organizations, regardless of their academic qualifications or alignment with established admission criteria. The correct answer is A. Establish a clearly defined and documented process for evaluating leadership potential and unique life experiences as supplementary criteria, ensuring these are assessed objectively and applied consistently to all applicants, within the bounds of existing university admission policies and Egyptian ministry regulations. Explanation: this scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between the university's desire to attract a diverse student body and the need to maintain academic integrity and fairness in the admissions process. The admissions committee must navigate the ethical imperative of equitable treatment for all applicants while adhering to the specific regulatory framework governing university admissions in Egypt, as stipulated by the Ministry of Higher Education and Scientific Research and Ahram Canadian University's own internal policies, which are the sole governing documents for this exam. The correct approach involves a thorough and objective review of all applications, ensuring that any special considerations are applied consistently and transparently, in line with established university guidelines and Egyptian ministry regulations. This approach upholds the principle of meritocracy and prevents any perception of undue influence or favoritism. It requires the admissions committee to act with impartiality, basing decisions solely on the documented qualifications and potential of each candidate, as defined by the university's admission criteria. An incorrect approach would be to grant preferential treatment based on vague or unsubstantiated claims of potential, without a clear, documented, and consistently applied framework for evaluating such claims. This could lead to accusations of bias and undermine the credibility of the admissions process, violating the principles of fairness and equal opportunity mandated by the regulatory framework. Another incorrect approach would be to disregard the established admission criteria in favor of subjective interpretations of stakeholder feedback, which could introduce personal biases and circumvent the established governance of the admissions process. Finally, an approach that prioritizes external pressure over adherence to documented university policies and ministry regulations would be a direct contravention of the established legal and ethical standards for university admissions. Professionals in this situation should employ a decision-making process that prioritizes adherence to the established regulatory framework and university policies. This involves 1. Clearly understanding the scope and limitations of any special consideration clauses within the regulations. 2. Ensuring that any subjective assessments are supported by objective evidence and are applied uniformly across all similar cases. 3. Documenting all decisions and the rationale behind them to ensure transparency and accountability. And 4. Seeking clarification from relevant authorities or legal counsel if ambiguity exists within the regulations or policies. Question 4. The evaluation methodology shows a potential candidate for the Ahram Canadian University's engineering program has a strong academic record, but limited documented leadership experience in extracurricular activities. The admissions committee is debating whether to prioritize the candidate's high grades or to consider their perceived lack of leadership potential as a significant drawback, given the university's emphasis on developing well-rounded graduates. Option A. Reject the applicant based on the assumption that limited extracurricular leadership experience will hinder their success and future contributions to the university, regardless of their academic achievements. Option B. Admit the applicant solely based on their high academic scores, overlooking the university's stated goal of admitting students with diverse experiences and leadership potential. Option C. Defer the decision indefinitely pending further investigation into the applicant's social media presence to gauge their perceived leadership qualities, without a clear policy for such a review. Option D. Conduct a comprehensive review of the applicant's academic transcripts, standardized test scores, and any submitted essays or personal statements, while also seeking further information or clarification on their extracurricular involvement and any leadership roles, however informal, to form a holistic assessment aligned with university admission criteria. The correct answer is D. Conduct a comprehensive review of the applicant's academic transcripts, standardized test scores, and any submitted essays or personal statements, while also seeking further information or clarification on their extracurricular involvement and any leadership roles, however informal, to form a holistic assessment aligned with university admission criteria. Explanation: This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the university's stated commitment to academic integrity with the practical pressures of student recruitment and retention. The admissions committee must navigate the ethical imperative to uphold rigorous standards against the potential for negative publicity or perceived bias if a candidate's application is rejected based on a potentially subjective assessment. Careful judgment is required to ensure fairness, transparency, and adherence to established university policies. The correct approach involves a thorough, multifaceted review of the applicant's profile, focusing on verifiable academic achievements and documented extracurricular involvement, while also considering any extenuating circumstances presented. This aligns with the Ahram Canadian University's stated commitment to a holistic evaluation process, as outlined in its admissions guidelines, which emphasizes both academic merit and potential contributions to the university community. Furthermore, it upholds the ethical principle of fairness by providing a consistent and objective framework for assessing all applicants, ensuring that decisions are based on evidence rather than speculation. An incorrect approach that relies solely on the applicant's perceived potential, without concrete evidence of past performance or demonstrated skills, fails to adhere to the university's published admissions criteria. This could lead to accusations of arbitrary decision-making and a lack of due process, undermining the credibility of the admissions process. Another incorrect approach that dismisses the applicant's achievements due to a perceived lack of fit, without a clearly defined and consistently applied definition of fit, risks introducing bias and discrimination, violating principles of equal opportunity. Finally, an approach that prioritizes meeting recruitment targets over the integrity of the admissions process would be a severe ethical breach, compromising the academic standards of Ahram Canadian University. Professionals in admissions should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a clear understanding of the university's stated policies and ethical guidelines. This involves systematically gathering and evaluating all available evidence for each applicant, applying consistent criteria, and documenting the rationale for every decision. When faced with ambiguity or potential bias, seeking input from a diverse committee, and consulting with senior leadership or the relevant oversight body is crucial to ensure a fair and defensible outcome. Question 5. The performance metrics show a statistically significant decline in the average scores of candidates on the Ahram Canadian University entrance exam compared to the previous 3 admission cycles. This trend is observed across multiple subject areas within the exam. Option A. Attribute the performance decline to external factors such as increased competition for university places, and advise the admissions committee to lower the minimum score requirements for this year's intake. Option B. Conduct a comprehensive psychometric analysis of the examination, including item difficulty, discrimination, and reliability, and compare these results against established benchmarks and previous exam administrations to identify potential issues with the test itself. Option C. Immediately implement a mandatory remedial preparatory course for all future applicants, assuming the decline is solely due to insufficient candidate preparation. Option D. Announce a temporary suspension of the entrance exam and revert to a system of high school transcript evaluation for admissions, citing concerns about the exam's validity. The correct answer is B. Conduct a comprehensive psychometric analysis of the examination, including item difficulty, discrimination, and reliability, and compare these results against established benchmarks and previous exam administrations to identify potential issues with the test itself. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the university's stated commitment to academic integrity with the practical pressures of student retention and institutional reputation. The entrance exam is a critical gatekeeper, and its perceived fairness and effectiveness are paramount. The challenge lies in interpreting performance data objectively while adhering to the established regulatory framework and ethical guidelines governing university admissions and examinations, as set forth by Ahram Canadian University's internal policies and any applicable Egyptian Ministry of Higher Education regulations. The correct approach involves a thorough, data-driven review of the examination's psychometric properties and a comparative analysis against established benchmarks without prematurely concluding bias. This aligns with the principle of fair assessment, which mandates that evaluation tools are valid, reliable, and free from systematic error. It also respects the university's commitment to transparent and equitable admissions processes by focusing on objective analysis of the test's design, administration, and scoring. This approach seeks to identify potential issues that could be addressed through improvements to the examination itself, rather than making unsubstantiated claims about external factors influencing performance. An incorrect approach would be to immediately attribute the performance dip to external factors like inadequate preparation or cheating, without rigorous investigation. This bypasses the essential step of scrutinizing the examination's integrity and could lead to unfair accusations or misallocation of resources for remediation. Such an approach risks violating principles of due process and could damage the reputation of both the students and the university. Another incorrect approach would be to suggest immediate, drastic changes to the examination's format or scoring based on a single performance dip, without understanding the root cause. This demonstrates a lack of analytical rigor and could compromise the validity and comparability of future admission cycles. It fails to uphold the standard of evidence-based decision-making crucial in academic administration. A further incorrect approach would be to dismiss the performance metrics entirely, assuming they are an anomaly. This neglects the university's responsibility to monitor and evaluate its admissions processes continuously. Ignoring such data could lead to systemic issues going unaddressed, potentially impacting the quality of the incoming student cohort and the university's academic standing. The professional decision-making process in such situations should involve a systematic investigation. This begins with defining the problem clearly, gathering all relevant data, analyzing the data objectively using appropriate methodologies, e.g., item analysis, reliability studies, consulting with subject matter experts and examination developers, and then formulating evidence-based recommendations. Transparency and adherence to established university policies and regulatory guidelines are essential throughout this process. Question 6. Quality control measures reveal that a student's submitted essay for a core course at Ahram Canadian University contains significant verbatim passages that are not properly cited, raising concerns about potential academic misconduct. The faculty member responsible for the course is aware of the student's prior academic performance, which has been satisfactory. What is the most appropriate immediate next step for the faculty member to take in accordance with Ahram Canadian University's academic integrity guidelines? Option A. Discuss the findings directly with the student, explaining the university's citation requirements and advising them to resubmit the essay with proper citations. Option B. Immediately assign a failing grade for the course to the student based on the evidence of plagiarism. Option C. Ignore the issue, assuming it was an oversight given the student's previous academic record, and proceed with grading the essay as is. Option D. Report the suspected academic misconduct to the university's Academic Integrity Office for a formal investigation and adjudication. The correct answer is D. Report the suspected academic misconduct to the university's Academic Integrity Office for a formal investigation and adjudication. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between maintaining academic integrity and addressing potential breaches of university policy. The university's commitment to fair assessment and the prevention of academic misconduct necessitates a structured and evidence-based response. Careful judgment is required to ensure that any actions taken are proportionate, fair, and in line with established procedures. The correct approach involves a thorough, impartial investigation that adheres strictly to Ahram Canadian University's academic integrity policies. This means gathering all relevant evidence, providing the student with an opportunity to respond, and then making a decision based on the findings and the university's established disciplinary framework. This approach upholds the principles of due process and fairness, ensuring that decisions are not arbitrary but are grounded in established rules and evidence. It aligns with the university's ethical obligation to maintain a credible academic environment. An incorrect approach would be to immediately impose a penalty without a proper investigation. This fails to provide the student with natural justice, which is a fundamental ethical principle in academic institutions. Another incorrect approach would be to dismiss the concern without any follow-up, which undermines the university's commitment to academic integrity and could allow for future misconduct to go unchecked. Finally, an approach that involves informal resolution without documentation or adherence to policy risks setting a precedent for inconsistent application of rules and could be perceived as biased. Professionals facing such situations should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes adherence to established policies and procedures. This involves 1. Acknowledging the concern and initiating the formal process. 2. Gathering all relevant information and evidence objectively. 3. Ensuring the affected party is informed and given a fair opportunity to present their case. 4. Consulting relevant university policies and guidelines. 5. Making a decision based on the evidence and policy, ensuring it is documented. 6. Communicating the decision and any consequences clearly. Question 7. Governance review demonstrates that a significant number of students admitted to the Ahram Canadian University's undergraduate programs this academic year achieved unusually high scores on the Ahram Canadian University entrance exam, with several instances of identical, highly improbable answer patterns across multiple choice sections. This raises concerns about potential irregularities in the examination process. Which of the following represents the most appropriate course of action for the university administration? Option A. Immediately suspend all admissions for the current academic year and announce a complete overhaul of the entrance examination system, pending a lengthy external audit. Option B. Publicly announce a review of the entire entrance exam cohort scores and consider rescinding admissions for a percentage of students deemed statistically anomalous. Without individual assessment, Option C. Dismiss the concerns as statistical outliers, attributing the high scores to exceptional student talent, and proceed with all current admissions without further inquiry. Option D. Initiate a comprehensive, impartial investigation into the specific instances of concern, following the university's established protocols for academic integrity and admissions, and providing affected students with an opportunity to respond to any findings. The correct answer is D. Initiate a comprehensive, impartial investigation into the specific instances of concern, following the university's established protocols for academic integrity and admissions, and providing affected students with an opportunity to respond to any findings. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the university's commitment to academic integrity with the practicalities of student admissions and the potential for reputational damage. The Ahram Canadian University entrance exam framework, as it pertains to admissions, emphasizes fairness, transparency, and adherence to established academic standards. The challenge lies in identifying and addressing potential breaches of these standards without compromising the integrity of the examination process or unfairly penalizing students. The correct approach involves a thorough, impartial investigation into the alleged irregularities, adhering strictly to the Ahram Canadian University's established policies for academic misconduct and appeals. This approach is right because it upholds the principles of due process and fairness for all students, as mandated by the university's internal regulations and general principles of academic governance. It ensures that any decisions made are based on verifiable evidence and follow a defined procedure, thereby protecting the university's reputation for academic rigor and integrity. An incorrect approach would be to dismiss the allegations without a proper investigation. This fails to uphold the university's commitment to academic integrity and could lead to the admission of unqualified or improperly admitted students, undermining the value of the degrees awarded. It also violates the principle of fairness to students who have adhered to the rules. Another incorrect approach would be to implement immediate punitive measures against the entire cohort without individual assessment. This is a failure of due process and fairness, as it punishes students who may not have been involved in any wrongdoing. It also risks alienating a significant portion of the incoming student body and could lead to legal challenges or public relations crises. A further incorrect approach would be to ignore the allegations due to pressure from external stakeholders or a desire to avoid negative publicity. This demonstrates a lack of ethical leadership and a disregard for the university's core mission of providing quality education. It prioritizes expediency over integrity, which is a fundamental breach of professional responsibility in an academic setting. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve 1. Acknowledging the seriousness of the allegations and the need for investigation. 2. Consulting and strictly adhering to the university's established policies and procedures for academic misconduct and admissions. 3. Ensuring impartiality and objectivity throughout the investigation. 4. Communicating transparently with relevant stakeholders within the bounds of confidentiality. 5. Making decisions based on evidence and established policy with a clear rationale. 6. Providing avenues for appeal and due process for affected individuals. Question 8. Operational review demonstrates that a significant number of international applicants to Ahram Canadian University are submitting academic transcripts and certificates that appear to be from institutions not readily verifiable through standard online databases. Some applicants have also provided self-attested equivalency statements from their home country's educational authorities, which are not always accompanied by detailed course syllabi or grading breakdowns. The admissions committee is concerned about the potential for fraudulent documentation and the challenge of accurately assessing the academic rigor of these qualifications against Canadian university standards. What is the most appropriate course of action for the Ahram Canadian University Admissions Office in this situation? Option A. Establish a clear policy for requesting additional supporting documentation, such as detailed course descriptions and official grade reports directly from the issuing institutions, and engage with recognized international credential evaluation services for complex cases, while providing applicants with a defined period to respond to any requests for clarification. Option B. Implement a mandatory in-person credential evaluation service for all international applicants whose documents cannot be immediately verified online, requiring applicants to bear the cost. Option C. Accept all self-attested equivalency statements at face value to expedite the admissions process and avoid potential delays for applicants, assuming good faith unless clear evidence of fraud is presented. Option D. Reject all applications that cannot be instantly verified through online databases to maintain the highest standards of academic integrity and prevent any potential admission of unqualified students. Correct answer is B. Implement a mandatory in-person credential evaluation service for all international applicants whose documents cannot be immediately verified online, requiring applicants to bear the cost. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the university's commitment to academic integrity with the practicalities of managing student applications, particularly when faced with potentially incomplete or misleading information. The core tension lies in upholding the rigorous standards expected of a Canadian university entrance exam while ensuring fairness to applicants. Careful judgment is required to avoid both admitting unqualified students and unfairly rejecting deserving ones. The correct approach involves a systematic and transparent process of verifying the submitted academic credentials. This means cross-referencing the provided transcripts and certificates with official issuing bodies or recognized educational databases where possible. If discrepancies or ambiguities arise, the university should have a clear protocol for requesting further documentation or clarification from the applicant, adhering to principles of due process and fairness. This aligns with the general regulatory expectation for educational institutions to maintain accurate student records and to make admission decisions based on verified qualifications. Ethically, this approach upholds honesty and transparency in the admissions process. An incorrect approach would be to immediately reject the application based solely on the initial suspicion of falsification, without allowing the applicant an opportunity to clarify or provide additional evidence. This could be seen as an arbitrary decision and may violate principles of natural justice. Another incorrect approach would be to overlook the discrepancies and admit the student without proper verification, which compromises academic standards and the integrity of the university's admissions process. This could lead to admitting students who do not meet the required academic threshold, potentially impacting the learning environment for other students and the reputation of the university. A third incorrect approach would be to accept the applicant's self-declaration of equivalency without any independent verification, which bypasses established procedures for assessing international qualifications and opens the door to potential fraud. Professionals in university admissions should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes verification, transparency, and fairness. This involves understanding the university's admission policies, familiarizing oneself with common credential verification methods, and knowing when and how to escalate complex cases to senior admissions officers or specialized departments. The process should always allow for applicant response and provide clear communication regarding any requirements or decisions. Question 9. Stakeholder feedback indicates a recurring concern among students regarding the perceived fairness and clarity of certain examination questions, in the recent Ahram Canadian University entrance exam. A student has formally submitted a complaint alleging that a specific question was ambiguous and led to an unfair assessment of their knowledge. What is the most appropriate course of action for the Ahram Canadian University's examination board to address this situation? Option A. Immediately grant the student a partial refund of their examination fee as a gesture of goodwill, without conducting a formal review of the question or the student's submission. Option B. Advise the student that examination questions are final and that no review or adjustment can be made, regardless of the nature of their feedback. Option C. Initiate a formal review of the specific examination question and the student's submission, adhering strictly to the university's established academic integrity policies and procedures for handling assessment grievances. Option D. Publicly announce a general review of all examination questions from the recent intake to address potential ambiguities, without specifically investigating the student's individual complaint. The correct answer is C. Initiate a formal review of the specific examination question and the student's submission, adhering strictly to the university's established academic integrity policies and procedures for handling assessment grievances. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the university's commitment to academic integrity with the need to address student concerns promptly and fairly. The challenge lies in interpreting and applying the Ahram Canadian University's academic regulations in a way that is both procedurally sound and perceived as equitable by the student body. A hasty or overly lenient response could undermine the credibility of the examination process, while an overly rigid or dismissive approach could alienate students and create a perception of unfairness. Careful judgment is required to ensure that any action taken is consistent with the university's stated policies and ethical obligations. The correct approach involves a thorough, impartial investigation that adheres strictly to the Ahram Canadian University's established academic integrity policies and procedures. This means gathering all relevant evidence, including the student's submission, the original exam questions, and any grading rubrics or guidelines. The investigation should be conducted by an appropriate academic committee or designated official, ensuring confidentiality and due process for the student. The decision should be based solely on the evidence and the university's regulations, with clear communication of the findings and any subsequent actions. This approach is ethically sound and regulatorily compliant because it upholds the principles of fairness, transparency, and accountability central to academic governance. It ensures that academic standards are maintained while respecting the rights of the student. An incorrect approach would be to immediately dismiss the student's concerns without a proper review. This fails to uphold the university's commitment to due process and could be perceived as arbitrary and unfair, potentially leading to further complaints or appeals. It also risks overlooking genuine errors in the examination or grading process. Another incorrect approach would be to grant the student an automatic grade adjustment or a re-examination simply due to the feedback, without verifying the validity of the complaint. This undermines the integrity of the assessment process and sets a precedent that could be exploited, violating the principle of equitable assessment for all students. A third incorrect approach would be to publicly discuss the student's specific case or the nature of their feedback without their consent. This violates the student's privacy and confidentiality, which is a fundamental ethical and potentially regulatory requirement in handling student academic matters. Professionals in this situation should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes adherence to established policies and procedures. This involves 1. Acknowledging the feedback and initiating a formal review process. 2. Gathering all relevant information and evidence objectively. 3. Applying the university's academic regulations consistently and impartially. 4. Documenting all steps taken and decisions made. 5. Communicating the outcome clearly and respectfully to the student. This structured approach ensures that decisions are defensible, fair, and aligned with the university's governance framework. Question 10. Stakeholder feedback indicates that some students feel the recent entrance examination may have contained errors or ambiguities that unfairly impacted their performance. As an admissions officer at Ahram Canadian University, how should you proceed to address these concerns while upholding the university's academic standards? Option A. Forward all student complaints to the examination board without any initial assessment or recommendation, leaving the entire responsibility to them. Option B. Advise students that entrance examinations are designed to be challenging and that individual performance is the sole determinant of admission, discouraging further appeals. Option C. Immediately offer all students who expressed concerns a supplementary assessment to ensure fairness, regardless of the specific nature of their feedback. Option D. Initiate a formal review process by gathering all student feedback, cross-referencing it with the examination content and marking scheme, and consulting the Ahram Canadian University's academic integrity policy to determine if any procedural or content-related issues warrant further action. The correct answer is D. Initiate a formal review process by gathering all student feedback, cross-referencing it with the examination content and marking scheme, and consulting the Ahram Canadian University's academic integrity policy to determine if any procedural or content-related issues warrant further action. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the university's commitment to academic integrity with the need to address student concerns promptly and fairly. The challenge lies in interpreting and applying the Ahram Canadian University's academic regulations in a way that upholds standards while also being perceived as just by the student body. Careful judgment is required to avoid either overly punitive measures that could alienate students or overly lenient responses that could undermine the credibility of the examination process. The correct approach involves a thorough, impartial review of the student's concerns, referencing the specific academic integrity policies and procedures outlined by Ahram Canadian University. This approach is right because it adheres to the established regulatory framework for academic conduct, ensuring that all decisions are based on documented university policy and a fair assessment of the evidence. This upholds the principle of due process for the student and maintains the integrity of the examination system. An incorrect approach that involves immediately dismissing the student's concerns without investigation fails to uphold the university's commitment to fairness and due process. This could be seen as a violation of implicit ethical obligations to treat students equitably and could lead to a perception of arbitrary decision-making, potentially damaging student morale and trust in the institution. Another incorrect approach, which is to immediately grant a re-examination without a proper review, undermines the rigor of the original examination and could set a precedent for future students to challenge assessments without substantive grounds. This approach fails to adhere to the university's established procedures for handling academic appeals or concerns, thereby compromising the integrity of the academic assessment process. Professionals should approach such situations by first understanding the specific university policies and procedures governing academic integrity and student grievances. They should then gather all relevant information, including the student's statement and any evidence related to the examination. A fair and impartial assessment of this information against the established policies should guide the decision-making process. If there are ambiguities in the policy, seeking clarification from the relevant academic or administrative body within Ahram Canadian University is crucial. The ultimate decision should be documented and communicated clearly to the student, explaining the rationale based on university regulations. Question 11. The audit findings indicate inconsistencies in the administration of the Ahram Canadian University entrance exam, specifically regarding the adherence to invigilation protocols and the uniformity of question paper distribution across different examination centers. Which of the following represents the most appropriate course of action for the university administration to address these findings? Option A. Immediately issue a directive to all examination centers to strictly enforce all invigilation rules as per the existing handbook, without further investigation into the root cause of the reported inconsistencies. Option B. Conduct a comprehensive review of the Ahram Canadian University entrance, exam regulations, and admission policies, cross-referencing them with the observed audit findings to identify specific areas of non-compliance and develop targeted corrective measures. Option C. Focus on identifying and disciplining the invigilators at the affected centers, as the audit findings directly point to their failure to follow established protocols. Option D. Implement a new, more stringent set of invigilation rules for all future entrance exams, assuming the current regulations are insufficient to prevent such discrepancies. The correct answer is B. Conduct a comprehensive review of the Ahram Canadian University entrance, exam regulations, and admission policies, cross-referencing them with the observed audit findings to identify specific areas of non-compliance and develop targeted corrective measures. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because the audit findings highlight a potential conflict between the university's established academic policies and the practical implementation of its admissions process. The university's commitment to academic integrity, as reflected in its entrance exam regulations, is being questioned due to the observed inconsistencies. This requires careful judgment to ensure that any corrective actions uphold the integrity of the admissions process and comply with Ahram Canadian University's specific entrance exam framework. The correct approach involves a thorough review of the existing entrance exam regulations and admission policies to identify the root cause of the discrepancies. This would entail comparing the actual examination procedures against the documented rules, assessing the training provided to invigilators, and evaluating the fairness and consistency of the scoring process. The justification for this approach lies in its adherence to the principle of regulatory compliance and academic fairness. By systematically investigating the findings against the established framework, the university can ensure that its admissions process is transparent, equitable, and aligned with its own governance. This proactive and evidence-based approach is crucial for maintaining the credibility of the Ahram Canadian University entrance exam. An incorrect approach would be to dismiss the audit findings without a proper investigation, assuming they are minor procedural errors. This fails to acknowledge the potential for systemic issues that could undermine the validity of the entrance exam and the fairness of admissions. Such an action would be a regulatory failure, as it neglects the university's responsibility to adhere to its own established examination guidelines. Another incorrect approach would be to implement immediate, sweeping changes to the exam format or invigilation procedures without understanding the specific nature of the discrepancies. This could lead to further disruption and may not address the actual problem, potentially creating new compliance issues. This approach lacks the analytical rigor required to ensure that changes are effective and aligned with the university's regulatory framework. A third incorrect approach would be to focus solely on punitive measures against individuals involved without first understanding the systemic causes. While accountability is important, failure to address underlying procedural or training deficiencies would be an ethical failure, as it prioritizes blame over improvement and fails to safeguard the integrity of future exams. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. First, thoroughly understand the audit findings and their potential implications within the specific regulatory context of the Ahram Canadian University entrance exam. Second, gather all relevant documentation and evidence pertaining to the exam administration and admissions process. Third, conduct a systematic review against the university's established policies and regulations. Fourth, identify the root causes of any discrepancies. Finally, develop and implement targeted, evidence-based solutions that ensure compliance and uphold academic integrity, followed by a review to confirm effectiveness. Question 12. The control framework reveals that an applicant to the Ahram Canadian University entrance exam has been flagged for potential academic misconduct during a previous standardized test administered by a different institution. The admissions committee is aware of the applicant's otherwise exceptional academic record and strong potential for success at the university. What is the most appropriate course of action for the admissions committee to take regarding this applicant's admission? Option A. Admit the applicant immediately, given their strong academic record, and address the alleged misconduct internally at a later stage, if necessary. Option B. Conduct a thorough and impartial investigation into the alleged academic misconduct, following Ahram Canadian University's established procedures for handling such cases, and make a decision based on the findings and university policy. Option C. Offer the applicant conditional admission, contingent on them completing a remedial ethics course before commencing their studies, without a formal investigation into the past incident. Option D. Reject the applicant outright without further investigation, based on the suspicion of academic misconduct. The correct answer is B. Conduct a thorough and impartial investigation into the alleged academic misconduct, following Ahram Canadian University's established procedures for handling such cases, and make a decision based on the findings and university policy. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the university's stated commitment to academic integrity with the practical pressures of student recruitment and retention. The admissions committee faces a situation where a potentially strong candidate has engaged in academic misconduct. Navigating this requires a deep understanding of Ahram Canadian University's specific entrance exam regulations and ethical guidelines concerning academic honesty. The correct approach involves a thorough, impartial investigation into the alleged misconduct, adhering strictly to the Ahram Canadian University entrance exams established procedures for handling academic integrity violations. This includes gathering all relevant evidence, providing the applicant with an opportunity to respond, and making a decision based solely on the university's stated policies and the evidence presented. This approach upholds the university's commitment to academic integrity, ensures fairness to all applicants, and maintains the credibility of the admissions process. It aligns with the ethical principle of treating all individuals equitably and upholding institutional standards. An incorrect approach would be to overlook the alleged misconduct due to the candidate's strong academic profile or potential contribution to the university. This failure to investigate and address academic dishonesty undermines the university's integrity and creates an unfair advantage for the applicant over others who have adhered to the rules. It also violates the principle of accountability and could set a precedent for future misconduct. Another incorrect approach would be to automatically reject the candidate without a proper investigation or without allowing them to present their side of the story. While upholding academic integrity is crucial, procedural fairness is also a key ethical consideration. Denying an applicant due process, even in cases of alleged misconduct, can lead to accusations of bias and unfairness, and may violate the university's own stated procedures for handling such matters. A third incorrect approach would be to apply a lenient penalty that does not reflect the severity of the misconduct, perhaps influenced by external pressures or a desire to meet recruitment targets. This would fail to adequately deter future misconduct and would be inconsistent with the university's stated commitment to academic honesty, thereby eroding trust in the admissions process. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a systematic review of the university's academic integrity policies and procedures. Professionals must prioritize impartiality, thoroughness, and fairness in their investigations. They should consult relevant university guidelines and, if necessary, seek advice from academic integrity officers or legal counsel to ensure compliance with all applicable regulations and ethical standards. The focus should always be on making a decision that is consistent with the university's values and its commitment to a fair and credible admissions process. Question 13. The assessment process reveals a candidate for admission to Ahram Canadian University possesses exceptional extracurricular achievements and a compelling personal statement, demonstrating significant potential for academic success and community contribution. However, this candidate narrowly missed the minimum required score on a specific section of the Ahram Canadian University entrance exam. The admissions officer is aware of the university's stated commitment to fostering a diverse and inclusive student body. What is the most appropriate course of action for the admissions officer, strictly adhering to the regulatory framework of the Ahram Canadian University entrance exam? Option A. Advise the candidate to retake the Ahram Canadian University entrance exam, as the score is the primary determinant for admission and no exceptions can be made. Option B. Recommend a holistic review of the candidate's application, highlighting their strengths and potential, to be considered by the admissions committee in accordance with any provisions for exceptional circumstances within the Ahram Canadian University entrance exam regulations. Option C. Grant the candidate admission based on their exceptional extracurricular achievements and personal statement, as this aligns with the university's broader goals of diversity and inclusion, overriding the specific exam score requirement. Option D. Suggests that the admissions committee consider creating a new category of admission for candidates with strong non-academic profiles, even if they do not meet the standard entrance exam criteria. The correct answer is B. Recommend a holistic review of the candidate's application, highlighting their strengths and potential, to be considered by the admissions committee in accordance with any provisions for exceptional circumstances within the Ahram Canadian University entrance exam regulations. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires an admissions officer to balance the university's stated commitment to diversity and inclusion with the need to adhere strictly to the established entrance examination criteria. The core of the challenge lies in interpreting and applying the examination guidelines when faced with a candidate who demonstrates exceptional qualities but falls short on a specific, quantifiable metric. The university's reputation and the fairness of its admissions process are at stake. Correct approach involves a thorough review of the candidate's application against the entirety of the Ahram Canadian University Entrance Exam regulations, with a particular focus on any provisions for exceptional circumstances or holistic review. If the regulations allow for consideration of extenuating factors or a broader assessment of potential beyond a single test score, then advocating for such a review, supported by evidence of the candidate's strengths, is the appropriate course of action. This aligns with ethical principles of fairness and the potential for the university to benefit from diverse talents, provided it is done within the established regulatory framework. The Ahram Canadian University Entrance Exam Guidelines, as the sole governing document, must be the ultimate reference. An incorrect approach would be to disregard the entrance exam score entirely without explicit regulatory allowance. This would violate the principle of equal application of rules and could lead to accusations of favoritism or bias, undermining the integrity of the admissions process. Another incorrect approach would be to unilaterally grant admission based on personal judgment without consulting or adhering to the established appeal or review mechanism within the Ahram Canadian University Entrance Exam framework. This bypasses the defined procedures and could set a dangerous precedent. Finally, attempting to retroactively alter the examination criteria or score to fit the candidate would be a severe breach of regulatory compliance and ethical conduct. Professionals in admissions should employ a decision-making process that begins with a comprehensive understanding of all relevant regulations. When faced with an anomaly, the first step is to identify any clauses within the governing framework that address such situations. If no explicit provision exists, the next step is to consult with superiors or a designated review committee, presenting all relevant information and seeking guidance on how to proceed within the spirit and letter of the regulations. The decision must always be defensible based on the established rules and ethical considerations. Question 14. Compliance review shows that the Ahram Canadian University Entrance Exam Preparation Guidelines are being interpreted inconsistently by prospective students regarding the use of online resources and AI-powered study tools. To ensure fairness and academic integrity, what is the most appropriate course of action for the university's admissions department? Option A. Conduct individual interviews with each applicant to assess their understanding of the guidelines and their preparation methods. Option B. Rely on the general understanding of academic integrity that all applicants are expected to possess, assuming they will avoid any form of unauthorized assistance. Option C. Prohibit all use of online resources and AI tools during the preparation phase to eliminate any potential for misuse, regardless of their legitimate educational value. Option D. Issue a comprehensive addendum to the existing guidelines, clearly defining permissible and prohibited uses of online resources and AI tools, providing specific examples, and outlining the consequences of violations. The correct answer is D. Issue a comprehensive addendum to the existing guidelines, clearly defining permissible and prohibited uses of online resources and AI tools, providing specific examples, and outlining the consequences of violations. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the university's commitment to academic integrity with the need to provide clear and accessible information to prospective students. The challenge lies in interpreting and applying the Ahram Canadian University Entrance Exam's specific guidelines regarding the use of external resources during the exam preparation phase, ensuring that students understand the boundaries without being unduly restricted. The university must uphold the integrity of its admissions process, which means preventing any form of academic dishonesty, while also fostering a supportive environment for applicants. The correct approach involves developing and disseminating clear, unambiguous guidance on the permissible use of study materials and external assistance for the entrance exam. This guidance should explicitly define what constitutes acceptable preparation, e.g., using official study guides, attending university-approved workshops, consulting with academic advisors, and what is prohibited, e.g., sharing exam content, receiving direct answers from unauthorized sources, using AI tools to generate responses to practice questions that mimic the exam format. This approach is ethically sound and aligns with the principles of fairness and transparency expected in university admissions. It ensures that all applicants have a consistent understanding of the rules, thereby promoting an equitable playing field and safeguarding the integrity of the entrance examination process. An incorrect approach would be to provide vague or incomplete information about exam preparation. This could lead to unintentional violations of the exam's integrity by well-meaning students who are unsure of the rules. Such vagueness creates an unfair advantage for those who might exploit the ambiguity and undermines the university's commitment to a rigorous and honest admissions process. Another incorrect approach would be to adopt an overly restrictive policy that prohibits any form of external help, even legitimate academic support. This could deter qualified applicants who require reasonable assistance to prepare for a high-stakes examination and might not reflect the university's broader educational philosophy. It also fails to acknowledge that learning often involves collaboration and guidance. A third incorrect approach would be to assume that all applicants will inherently understand the ethical boundaries of exam preparation without explicit instruction. This passive stance abdicates the university's responsibility to guide its applicants and can lead to widespread misunderstandings and potential breaches of academic integrity, ultimately compromising the validity of the entrance exam results. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a thorough review of the university's existing policies on academic integrity and admissions. It requires proactive communication with prospective students, providing clear, actionable guidelines that are easily accessible and understandable. Professionals should anticipate potential areas of confusion and address them directly in their communications. Furthermore, establishing a clear channel for applicants to seek clarification on any aspect of the exam preparation guidelines is crucial for fostering trust and ensuring a fair process. Question 15. Upon reviewing the examination hall during the Ahram Canadian University entrance exam, you observe another candidate discreetly looking at notes hidden beneath their desk. What is the most appropriate and ethically responsible course of action? Option A. Make a mental note to discuss the incident with other candidates after the exam concludes. Option B. Immediately and discreetly inform the examination proctor of your observation. Option C. Approach the other candidate and quietly tell them to stop. Option D. Ignore the behavior to avoid any potential conflict or disruption. Correct answer is B. Immediately and discreetly inform the examination proctor of your observation. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires an applicant to demonstrate an understanding of the foundational principles of academic integrity and ethical conduct expected at Ahram Canadian University, specifically within the context of an entrance examination. The challenge lies in identifying the most appropriate and ethically sound response when faced with a situation that could compromise the fairness and validity of the examination process. Careful judgment is required to distinguish between actions that uphold academic standards and those that undermine them. The correct approach involves proactively and transparently reporting the observed irregularity to the examination proctor. This upholds the principle of academic integrity by ensuring that the examination environment remains fair and equitable for all candidates. By immediately informing the proctor, the applicant acts in accordance with the university's commitment to preventing academic misconduct and maintaining the credibility of its admissions process. This aligns with the ethical obligation to contribute to an honest and trustworthy academic environment. An incorrect approach would be to ignore the observed behavior. This failure to act allows potential academic dishonesty to go unchecked, thereby undermining the fairness of the examination for all other candidates and implicitly condoning such behavior. It violates the ethical expectation of contributing to an honest academic community. Another incorrect approach would be to confront the other candidate directly. This action is inappropriate for an applicant to take during an examination. It can lead to disruption, confrontation, and potential escalation, diverting attention from the examination itself and potentially creating an unsafe or hostile environment. Furthermore, it bypasses the established protocol for reporting irregularities, which is to inform the designated authority, the proctor. This approach demonstrates a lack of understanding of appropriate professional conduct within an examination setting. A further incorrect approach would be to discuss the observed behavior with other candidates after the examination. This constitutes gossip and speculation, which is unprofessional and does not contribute to resolving the issue. It also risks spreading misinformation and creating unnecessary anxiety among other applicants. The proper channel for addressing such concerns is through official reporting mechanisms. The professional decision-making process for similar situations involves 1. Identifying the core ethical principle at stake, e.g., academic integrity, fairness. 2. Recognizing the established procedures for addressing irregularities within the given context, e.g., reporting to a proctor. 3. Evaluating potential actions based on their adherence to these principles and procedures, as well as their potential impact on the examination environment and other participants. 4. Choosing the action that is most transparent, ethical, and aligned with the rules and expectations of the institution. Question 16. Cost-benefit analysis shows that implementing a new, more expensive admissions screening software could streamline the application process and potentially increase enrollment yield by identifying more ideal candidates. However, concerns have been raised that the algorithm within this software might inadvertently favor applicants from certain socioeconomic backgrounds due to the data it was trained on. The university is considering proceeding with the software implementation based on the projected financial gains. Which of the following represents the most professionally responsible course of action? Option A. Implement the new admissions screening software but simultaneously introduce a new, separate application track for students from disadvantaged backgrounds to ensure fairness. Option B. Proceed with the implementation of the new admissions screening software after conducting a thorough audit of the algorithm to identify and mitigate any potential biases, ensuring the university's commitment to equitable access is maintained. Option C. Reject the new admissions screening software due to the potential for bias, opting to continue with the current, less efficient, but demonstrably fair application process. Option D. Implement the new admissions screening software immediately to capitalize on the projected financial benefits and improved efficiency, addressing any potential bias concerns only if they arise after implementation. The correct answer is B. Proceed with the implementation of the new admissions screening software after conducting a thorough audit of the algorithm to identify and mitigate any potential biases, ensuring the university's commitment to equitable access is maintained. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the potential benefits of a new program with the ethical and regulatory obligations to ensure fairness and prevent discrimination. The university must consider not only the financial implications, but also its commitment to providing equitable access to education, as mandated by general principles of educational access and non-discrimination, which are implicitly expected of any reputable academic institution. Careful judgment is required to avoid unintended consequences that could disadvantage certain student groups. The correct approach involves a comprehensive review that explicitly considers the potential impact on diverse student populations and ensures alignment with the university's stated values and any overarching educational access policies. This approach is professionally sound because it proactively identifies and mitigates risks of discrimination, ensuring that the program's implementation adheres to ethical standards of fairness and inclusivity. It demonstrates a commitment to responsible institutional development by prioritizing student welfare and equitable opportunity over purely economic considerations. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on the financial benefits without assessing potential discriminatory impacts fails to uphold the ethical duty of care towards all prospective students. This oversight can lead to regulatory scrutiny if the program inadvertently creates barriers for certain demographic groups, violating principles of equal opportunity in education. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes immediate cost savings by cutting essential support services for specific student groups is ethically indefensible. Such an action directly contravenes the principle of providing a supportive learning environment for all students and could lead to accusations of unfair treatment and discrimination, potentially resulting in reputational damage and formal complaints. A professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a multi-stakeholder consultation, including representatives from student affairs, admissions, and equity offices. This process should include a thorough impact assessment that quantifies not only financial costs and benefits, but also potential social and ethical consequences. The decision should be guided by the university's mission statement, its commitment to diversity and inclusion, and any relevant guidelines on fair access to higher education. Question 17. Process analysis reveals that Ahram Canadian University is experiencing a decline in international student applications for its competitive programs. To address this, the Admissions Committee is considering strategies to support prospective international students preparing for the Ahram Canadian University entrance exam. Which of the following approaches best aligns with the regulatory framework and ethical guidelines for administering a standardized university entrance examination? Option A. Creating a tiered application system where international applicants who demonstrate prior academic excellence receive access to specialized pre-exam tutoring sessions. Option B. Developing a comprehensive online resource portal accessible to all prospective international applicants, featuring general study tips, sample question types, and information on exam format, while ensuring no personalized coaching or preferential material is provided. Option C. Encouraging international applicants to seek external coaching services, while providing them with a list of recommended, but not officially endorsed, private tutoring companies. Option D. Offering exclusive, fee-based preparatory workshops for a select group of international applicants identified as having high potential, providing them with advanced study materials and direct guidance from faculty. Correct answer is B. Developing a comprehensive online resource portal accessible to all prospective international applicants, featuring general study tips, sample question types, and information on exam format, while ensuring no personalized coaching or preferential material is provided. Explanation. The scenario presents a challenge in navigating the ethical and regulatory landscape of university admissions, specifically concerning the Ahram Canadian University entrance exam framework. The core difficulty lies in balancing the university's desire to attract talented international students with the imperative to uphold the integrity and fairness of the entrance examination process. Misinterpreting or circumventing the established guidelines can lead to accusations of bias, unfair advantage, and ultimately undermine the credibility of the admissions process and the university itself. The correct approach involves a thorough understanding and strict adherence to the Ahram Canadian University entrance exam's stated policies regarding candidate support and preparation. This means providing standardized, accessible information and resources to all prospective students, regardless of their background or location, without offering any form of preferential treatment or personalized coaching that could be construed as an unfair advantage. This aligns with the ethical principles of fairness, equity, and transparency, which are foundational to any reputable academic institution's admissions process. Specifically, it upholds the spirit of a standardized entrance exam designed to assess a candidate's aptitude on a level playing field. An incorrect approach that involves offering personalized preparatory sessions to a select group of international applicants, even with the intention of improving their chances, constitutes a significant ethical and regulatory failure. This creates an uneven playing field, directly contravening the principle of equal opportunity that underpins standardized testing. Such an action could be seen as a violation of the Ahram Canadian University entrance exam's implicit or explicit guidelines against providing undue assistance. Another incorrect approach, such as selectively sharing advanced study materials with certain international applicants, also violates the principle of transparency and fairness. This selective disclosure can lead to accusations of favoritism and compromise the integrity of the examination. A third incorrect approach, such as downplaying the difficulty of the exam to international applicants to encourage applications, is ethically dubious and potentially misleading, failing to set realistic expectations and undermining trust. Professionals in university admissions should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes adherence to established regulations and ethical principles. This involves 1. Clearly understanding the specific rules and guidelines of the Ahram Canadian University entrance exam. 2. Assessing any proposed action against these rules and the overarching ethical principles of fairness and equity. 3. Seeking clarification from relevant university authorities if there is any ambiguity. And 4. Always opting for the approach that ensures a transparent, equitable, and unbiased admissions process for all candidates. Question 18. Examination of the data shows that the Ahram Canadian University entrance exam regulations outline specific subject areas and question formats, but the current prospective student information portal provides only a general statement about the exam's purpose. What is the most appropriate action to ensure prospective students are adequately informed about the exam's content and structure, adhering to the principles of fairness and transparency inherent in university admissions? Option A. Advise prospective students to consult with academic advisors for information regarding the entrance exam's requirements. Option B. Provide a link to the full, unedited Ahram Canadian University Entrance Exam regulatory document on the university's website. Option C. Create a brief, high-level overview of the exam's general academic focus without detailing specific content or question formats. Option D. Develop a detailed summary of the exam's subject areas, question types, and scoring methodology, directly referencing the official regulatory framework for accuracy. The correct answer is D. Develop a detailed summary of the exam's subject areas, question types, and scoring methodology, directly referencing the official regulatory framework for accuracy. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the university's commitment to academic integrity with the need to provide clear and accessible information to prospective students. The challenge lies in interpreting the Ahram Canadian University Entrance Exam regulations to determine the appropriate level of detail and format for communicating exam requirements without inadvertently creating ambiguity or misinterpretation. The university must ensure that all prospective students, regardless of their background or prior experience with standardized testing, have a fair opportunity to understand what is expected of them. The correct approach involves a comprehensive review of the Ahram Canadian University Entrance Exam's official documentation, including any published syllabi, sample questions, and administrative guidelines. This review should focus on identifying the core competencies and knowledge areas assessed by the exam, as well as the specific format and structure of the examination. The university should then synthesize this information into a clear, concise, and easily understandable summary, presented in a format that is accessible to a broad audience. This approach is ethically sound and aligns with the principles of transparency and fairness, ensuring that all applicants are provided with accurate and actionable information to prepare effectively. It directly addresses the regulatory requirement to communicate exam parameters clearly. An incorrect approach would be to provide only a high-level overview without specific details on the content areas or question types. This fails to meet the implicit regulatory expectation of providing sufficient guidance for preparation and could lead to students being ill-prepared, thus undermining the fairness of the examination process. Another incorrect approach would be to simply link to the raw, uninterpreted regulatory documents. While technically providing access to information, it places an undue burden on prospective students to decipher complex legalistic language and may not highlight the most critical aspects of the exam, potentially leading to misunderstandings and a perception of unfairness. A third incorrect approach would be to create a simplified summary that omits crucial details about the exam's scope or scoring, which could mislead applicants about the nature of the assessment and their preparation needs. Professionals tasked with this responsibility should adopt a decision-making framework that prioritizes clarity, accuracy, and accessibility. This involves 1. Thoroughly understanding the source material, the exam regulations. 2. Identifying the target audience and their potential information needs. 3. Synthesizing complex information into digestible formats. And 4. Seeking feedback to ensure the communication is effective and unambiguous. The ultimate goal is to uphold the integrity of the examination process by ensuring all candidates have a fair and equal opportunity to prepare. Question 19. Assessment of a student's ethical response when approached by an unknown individual offering pre-obtained answers for the Ahram Canadian University entrance exam, with the promise of a significantly higher score. Option A. Negotiate a price for the pre-obtained answers, aiming to secure a better deal before deciding whether to use them. Option B. Express gratitude for the offer but state that they are confident in their own abilities and will not be using the provided answers without reporting the incident. Option C. Accept the pre-obtained answers, use them discreetly during the exam, and hope not to be caught. Option D. Politely decline the offer, report the incident to the university's admissions office, and proceed to take the exam with their own knowledge and preparation. The correct answer is D. Politely decline the offer, report the incident to the university's admissions office, and proceed to take the exam with their own knowledge and preparation. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due due to the inherent conflict between a student's desire for academic success and the university's commitment to academic integrity. The pressure to perform well on a crucial entrance exam, coupled with the availability of potentially unauthorized assistance, creates an ethical dilemma requiring careful judgment. The university's regulatory framework, as outlined for the Ahram Canadian University entrance exam, strictly prohibits any form of academic dishonesty. The correct approach involves recognizing the ethical boundaries and adhering strictly to the exam's rules and regulations. This means refusing any offer of assistance that could be construed as cheating, even if it appears to guarantee a better score. This approach is ethically sound and aligns with the Ahram Canadian University entrance exam's guidelines, which emphasize fair assessment and the development of genuine academic capabilities. Upholding these principles is paramount to maintaining the integrity of the admissions process and fostering a culture of honesty within the university. An incorrect approach would be to accept the offer of pre-provided answers. This constitutes academic dishonesty, a direct violation of the Ahram Canadian University entrance exams regulations. Such an action undermines the fairness of the examination process, devalues the achievements of honest students, and compromises the academic standards of the university. It also exposes the student to severe penalties, including disqualification from the entrance exam and potential future academic repercussions. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the offer but feel pressured to perform exceptionally well by any means necessary, leading to undue stress and potentially compromising the student's well-being. While not directly cheating, this approach fails to address the ethical implications of the situation and can lead to unhealthy academic habits. The university's framework implicitly encourages students to approach exams with integrity and self-reliance, not through external pressures or anxieties that could be mitigated by ethical conduct. A professional decision-making process in such situations should involve a clear understanding of the relevant rules and ethical principles. Students should be encouraged to report any suspicious offers or attempts at academic dishonesty to the appropriate university authorities. Prioritizing integrity over immediate perceived gain is a cornerstone of responsible academic behavior and essential for building a credible academic record. Question 20. Which approach would be most appropriate for the Ahram Canadian University's examination board to take when a proctor reports observing a student exhibiting suspicious behavior, such as repeatedly looking at their lap during a timed entrance exam, which could indicate the use of unauthorized materials? Option A. Impose a verbal warning on the student after the exam and allow them to proceed with their application. Option B. Initiate a formal investigation process, gathering all relevant evidence and providing the student an opportunity to respond, in accordance with university academic integrity policies. Option C. Immediately invalidate the student's exam and deny them admission based on the proctor's report. Option D. Proceed with grading the exam as usual, assuming the proctor's observation was a misinterpretation. The correct answer is C. Immediately invalidate the student's exam and deny them admission based on the proctor's report. Explanation: this scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the university's commitment to academic integrity with the need to provide a fair and supportive environment for prospective students. The entrance exam is a critical gatekeeping mechanism, and its administration must be perceived as both rigorous and equitable. The challenge lies in identifying and addressing potential breaches of exam integrity without compromising the validity of the results or unfairly penalizing individuals. Careful judgment is required to distinguish between genuine misunderstandings and deliberate attempts to gain an unfair advantage. The correct approach involves a systematic and evidence-based investigation that prioritizes fairness and adherence to the Ahram Canadian University's established examination policies and academic integrity guidelines. This approach would involve gathering all available information, including the proctor's report and any digital evidence, and then presenting these findings to the designated Academic Integrity Committee or Disciplinary Board. This committee, operating under the university's regulations, would then conduct a formal review, allowing the student an opportunity to respond to the allegations. This process ensures that any disciplinary action is taken only after a thorough and impartial assessment, respecting due process and the university's commitment to academic honesty as outlined in its official student handbook and examination regulations. An incorrect approach would be to immediately disqualify the student based solely on the proctor's initial suspicion without further investigation. This fails to uphold the principle of due process, which is a fundamental ethical and regulatory expectation in academic institutions. It assumes guilt without providing the student an opportunity to explain their actions or present mitigating circumstances, potentially violating the university's own disciplinary procedures. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the proctor's report and proceed with grading the exam as normal. This neglects the university's responsibility to maintain the integrity of its entrance examinations and could allow a student who may have cheated to gain admission unfairly, undermining the academic standards of the university and disadvantaging other applicants who followed the rules. This failure to act on credible concerns constitutes a breach of professional duty and regulatory oversight. A third incorrect approach would be to impose a minor penalty, such as a warning, without a proper investigation or understanding of the severity of the alleged infraction. This approach lacks the necessary rigor and could set a precedent that undermines the seriousness of academic dishonesty. It fails to align with the university's stated policies on academic misconduct, which typically outline a range of penalties based on the nature and extent of the offense. A professional decision-making process in such situations should involve a clear understanding of the university's academic integrity policies and examination regulations. When an alleged breach occurs, the first step is to document the incident thoroughly. This documentation should then be submitted to the appropriate authority within the university responsible for academic misconduct investigations. This authority will then initiate a formal process, which typically includes informing the student of the allegations, providing them with an opportunity to respond, and conducting a fair and impartial review of the evidence. The decision should be based on the findings of this review and in accordance with the established disciplinary procedures.